Hopefully you have now an idea of what Qibla Foundation stands for and what it wants to represent. At some point during the event there will be an opportunity to have a Q&A, so you'll be able to ask questions. Shortly you'll also see some of the members from Qibla Foundation. They should be wearing the name badges if they are involved with the organisation at this time. I will hand over to the first speaker, but a short introduction, I don't think it's needed. Many of you know who he is. And one of the things that he's synonymous with is with dawah, and with community activation, and with youth, and refocusing those individuals, whether they are still young or whether they're perceived to be old, and refocus them back to Allah and what their responsibilities should be as Muslims within the community and within the West. So without further ado, I invite Yusuf Chambers.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I'd like to thank the brothers for inviting us for this seminal, incredibly important event. And it's basically about trying to create a paradigm shift in our community, because as you've seen, and as the brothers have all mentioned, you know, we've got 2,000 masajid, you know, we've got 200 Islamic schools. You know, actually most of the taxi driving services in the towns and cities are run by Muslims, yeah? We've got 40, Muslims playing in the Premier League, for what it's really worth, right? But, you know, what have we actually achieved? What have we actually achieved? The question has to be stated and asked by every single Muslim living in Britain today. Because the moment that the challenge occurs to us, we can't even get together with each other, because we're not used to getting together with each other to actually cooperate. And you know, we have seen a sea change in the attitudes towards practicing Muslims, to activists out there on the grounds. And we all know that. If you're an activist, you know that. But most of you, perhaps you don't know what's been going on. Now, there was a man in 1889 that understood Britain very well. You know, subhanAllah, in 1889, when the first Islamic Centre was established in Britain today, in Liverpool, in #2 city in the world, that was Liverpool. His name was Henry William Abdullah Quilliam. And of course, you might be thinking, Quilliam? What on earth is this guy talking about Quilliam for? Well, I'm telling you that they hijacked his name. Because the bottom line is that you know that Quilliam that you hear about with Masjid Nawaz, etc. May Allah, well, I'm not even going to say anything. I mean, you know, the thing is, you know, the point being that the real Abdullah Quilliam that we know was a man who was an activist for Islam. And he was the first activist for Islam, and at a time when you could not be anyone else but a Christian. You say in 1889, could you be, I mean, if you declared yourself anything else other than a Christian, then you were in serious trouble. So there's a man who takes Shahada in Morocco after, you know, an extensive trip abroad, and he was a very successful, you know, solicitor. He had his own legal company in the north-west of England, very successful by all accounts, and he took Shahada. He took Shahada in Morocco. He came back with a vision. His vision was to establish Islam in his city, Liverpool. It wasn't just to come back and, find a convenient place for himself to pray, find a convenient place for his children maybe to be educated. No. His vision was the vision of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to make sure that Islam would be established in every house, in every town, in every city, in every house. So when he opened the Islamic Center, the first day he opened it on was Christmas Day. Well, you might be thinking, oh my God, that's a bid'ah. This is, oh my God, this guy's lost it. The reason he opened it on Christmas Day, brothers and sisters, was because he wanted to feed the poor. And he wanted to give the best gift that those non-Muslims have ever had, which is a beautiful meal on Christmas Day. So he fed over 1,000 young kids from the street on that day, from the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because this is his vision. His vision was to return to Medina, the Medinan masjid, the Medinan model of Islam, where everyone was able to come to that place where everyone was able to benefit from Islam. So subhanallah, this man, the first thing he does is sadaqah, from the masjid. And the second thing he does is he opens up a place called Medina Orphanage. So he opens an orphanage under the name of Islam. And he has, in the end of 3 years, he has 50 orphans living under his control. One of the orphans he actually purchased from a Jewish woman for £50. Because he said it's better that she was happy to accept, that man, Abdullah William, would be looking after that child better than she could. And in the orphanage, he would be teaching Arabic. He would be teaching the Quran. He'd be teaching astronomy. He'd be teaching geology. He'd be teaching logic and reasoning. In Victorian Britain, there was a model that we all need to look up to and start to follow. And when the mu'adhin used to go to the 3rd floor and call the people to the prayer, some urchins used to come and throw stones at him. But do you think it stopped Abdullah William? No, it strengthened Abdullah William. It made him become more determined to establish that model. At a time when if we look around us, for the last 30 years, we've had a jolly. For 30 years, since I've been a Muslim, for 20 years, certainly in the last 18 years, no one's challenged us. No one's given us a difficult time, barring a few individuals here and there, right? But generally speaking, we've had it easy compared to what Abdullah William had it. There's a man who had a vision of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and wanted to implement it in a time when you could not call yourself a Muslim. And we look at ourselves today, when we're calling ourselves Muslims, we're establishing masjids, and the reality is we've had very little impact in 120 years. In 120 years, that's right. Folks, we've been established as a community for at least 50 years, right? And the Yemenis were in Liverpool at that time, and they were establishing themselves. There were Muslims in Scotland in 1853. The first medical student arrived in 1853 in Edinburgh from India. So we Muslims know that we have been here. The question is, why haven't we really been here? Why haven't we been part of Britain? Why haven't we been challenging, the authorities to say, no, we believe that Islam can offer solutions? Why? You see, Abdullah William had over 600 people enter the fold of Islam by his name. Yeah? If you went into his masjid, you would virtually only find white faces. And now you go into a masjid, you'd be lucky if you find one. You'd be lucky if you find one. Is it right, Jamil? Am I right? How many are in Muntada back in the days when we used to be there? How many white faces? How many Ghalasa? No, hardly one or two. And mostly you'll find that they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. Because the reality is we don't even look after them when they actually come into the fold of Islam. So this masjid was a place which was open for every single person of every different walk of life and persuasion. It was open to men, women and children. So if you go into the average masjid today, you will not find women. I come from Leicester, I'm telling you, I really believe, I understand what the situation is in regards to women being excluded from the house of Allah. And if you think about it, where does the term ummah come from? From the from the mother. So what you're doing is you're basically raping the ummah. You're taking the out of the ummah. And that is what we've done. And then you find the children, yeah? You know, many occasions I've seen one child running, and then the Imam makes this big announcement, who owns that child? And the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we understand that the women were praying at the back with no curtain, no wall, no obstruction. They could see the salah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the children were running in between the men and the women. And the children were jumping on the backs of the people as they were praying. And today, we have raped our masajids. We have destroyed them. So it's fantastic to have 2,000 masajid. Oh, well done, mashallah. But are they really practicing Islam? Are they really bringing this beautiful model of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to bear in England, in Britain, for everyone? No. Frankly speaking, and I always get in trouble for saying these things, but you know, we got to say it louder. We got to say it louder. So you got Abdullah Quilliam in the midst of Liverpool, number 2 city in the empire, the British Empire, and he starts to spread the message of Islam. Every week he's feeding the poor. Every week he's having free legal counseling sessions for the poor, to look after them, to make sure their wages are being paid by these multinational corporations we keep talking about today. They weren't paying them then, and they're still not paying them today. Because Muslims haven't been engaging in that dialogue. We've just been thinking about our little masajid and madrasa, and make sure our child knows the whole Quran by the age of 13. But ask him, does he even know what Qul Huwallahu Ahad means? And he will say no. And I've done this exercise before. So is it any wonder when the challenge comes to us, we do not know how to answer the difficult questions? We don't even know. We can't, as Dr. Zakir Naik once said, we can't even open our mouth. You see? So now when the Charities Commission decides 72 Muslim charities need to be investigated, who's there to challenge him? No one. Who's there to challenge those people? No one. And we can't even get together and have a group which is unified to challenge and create a counter-narrative. Seriously. The bottom line is we need a paradigm shift in our thinking. If we don't have a paradigm shift, you guys, you may as well be prepared to go back to Pakistan. Prepare to go back to Afghanistan. Prepare to go back to Bangladesh. Go back to Sri Lanka. Where am I going to go? Back to Ireland? I mean, really? No, I'm going to go to Islamabad, because Islam ain't bad. Right? But you know, the reality is, although we can laugh about it right now, we have serious challenges around the corner. And it's, Uncle Sam, it's no problem for you, because you know you're going to go back to Allah soon. But you know, your children and your nieces and your nephews, they may be here for another 50 years. And Britain, whether you like it or not, is their home. Britain is their home. And we have to establish ourselves firmly in this land with our beautiful faith and Islam. And we must not let people change it. We must not let people rock the boat. We must steer it in the direction that we were going when our forefathers established those masajid. So brothers and sisters, I want you to think about this Abdullah Quilliam. I want you to think about the model that he had every single week. He used to conduct talks in Liverpool town, centre. So he would hire out the halls, and he would bring Islam to the people. And this is why he had so much success, because he was proud to be a Muslim. He wasn't afraid to stand up for what he believed in. If a lot more of us were like that man, today, honestly, they will not be able to challenge us at all. It's a fact. Instead of us complaining and talking endlessly about the length of our beards, about the length of our thobe, about, whether we should, put our hands here in the salah, or here in the salah, or here, wherever it is, right? Why don't we just get together and start to command the good and forbid the evil as an ummah? Why can't, this is why Qibla Foundation, right? I got the name right, that's very unusual for me. Is an organization that wishes to take on these challenges, to unify the ranks of the Muslims, and to bring Islam to the Shabab, through the Shabab, by the Shabab, with the Shabab, right? With the youngsters, with all of their skill sets, with their motivation, with their energy. So my brothers and sisters, the Shabab, yes, of course I'm talking about young people, and not like me, kebab. Yes? We're talking about young people, for the people in the audience that perhaps are not familiar with that term. Okay? So brothers and sisters, please, I urge you, and I request you, I make a request to you sincerely from the bottom of my heart, that we do look at this opportunity that we have through this organization, through this group of brothers and sisters, no doubt, right? To re-energize ourselves as Muslims, to engage positively in British society by offering all the wonderful things that Islam has brought to bear for us, and offering them to the wider society, and enabling our children, our mothers and our fathers to effectively be able to engage with a very positive vision of Islam for the youngsters. Brothers and sisters, I urge you to get involved in this new movement, and for us to effectively to be able to survive in this British society that in the 10 years and the 20 years that we've got coming. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for coming tonight, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to unify for the sake of His sake for the beautiful deen of Islam, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be part of the da'wah to establish Islam in Harrow, in West London, the whole of London, and nay, the whole of the UK. Jazakallahu khair, wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.